Hey guys, Mr. Gibson here. I am going to go through a macroeconomics free response question from 2017. So little little different this time on a first question. Usually it's asking for a full macroeconomic model with ASAD. This is more of a Phillips curve question. So anyway, it says assume the country X has an actual unemployment rate of 7% and a natural unemployment rate of 5% and an inflation of 3%. Use numerical values given above. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the short run and long run Phillips curves. Label the current short run equilibrium as point B. Plot the numerical values above on the graph. Okay. So go ahead with this Phillips curve here. So it is the trade-off between the inflation rate and unemployment. Okay. All right. It says we have I like to start with the long run Phillips curve here with our natural rate of unemployment first. Okay. 5%. We have the downward sloping short run Phillips curve that shows the trade-off between the employment rate and inflation rate. When inflation rate is low, unemployment rate is high. When the inflation rate is high, unemployment rate is low. Okay. In the short run, it said that our current unemployment rate is above the natural rate of unemployment, so it's at 7%. And we have an inflation rate of 3%. Finally, we're going to label point B. This would be our equilibrium. Okay. Let me double check on that. I always get a little confused on this one. Oh, okay. I did get a little confused because this is our equilibrium because that's where we're at right now. Okay. Assume the government of X takes no policy action to reduce unemployment in the long run. Which of the following shift to the right, explain, or shift to the left, or remain the same? Okay. Short run aggregate supply curve, explain. So, the short run aggregate supply curve, we want to come back to this long run place. Okay. But it's the expectations around inflation rate that are going to bring us back to that. So, as people lower their inflationary expectations, we're going to move to the left. The short run Phillips curve is going to move to the left. We'll come back to this long run Phillips curve point with the full employment level. And so, yes, the short run Phillips curve will shift to the left. And the reason why is because people will lower their inflationary expectations. Okay. Because we've ended up with lower inflation than we expected. But we'll adjust. Long run Phillips curve, nothing's going to happen. Okay. Nothing's going to happen to it. Identify fiscal policy action that can be used to reduce unemployment in the short run. Same things, increase government spending or decrease taxes. Okay. Um, if we're in a recessionary gap as we're in, increase government spending, increase transfers, or decrease taxes. Okay. Draw a correctly labeled graph of aggregate demand, short run aggregate supply, and show the impact of the equilibrium price level and real gross domestic product on the fiscal action in part C. Okay. Y, price level, downward sloping aggregate demand, upward sloping short run aggregate supply. Okay. Increasing government spending, increasing government transfers, or increasing or decreasing taxes will result in this. It'll increase the GDP, but the trade-off is it will increase the price level. Okay. Based on this, the next two questions ask about foreign exchange and international trade, but we will not cover that on this test because that was left off this year. So anyway, here's our first Phillips curve. 1 point is earned. Looking at B here, saying that the short run aggregate supply will shift to the right in the long run, explaining that the nominal wages will fall in response to higher employment. I read that wrong. I'm so sorry. What they're talking about right here is I went back to this short run Phillips curve, but what I should have been talking about is the situation we are in. Oops, about to draw it wrong again. We're talking about the situation we're in on the ASAD curve, like this. So the short run aggregate supply curve is going to shift to the left like that. Inflationary, the deflationary pressure will put pressure on nominal wages to fall, and as they fall, it'll shift it to the right. Okay, so I misread that. My bad. But I was right on this one. And I wasn't too. All I did was misread it. I misread it because, and you got to be careful about that. It was asking about the short run aggregate supply curve, and I thought it was asking about the short run Phillips curve. Okay, so they're related, but they work opposite. One shifts to the left, the other one shifts to the right. And then in reverse, if one shifts to the right, it's going to shift to the left. Okay. 1 point is earned for saying that the long run aggregate Phillips curve will remain unchanged. Okay. 1 point is earned for stating the government should either increase its expenditures or purchases or decrease taxes. That's pretty standard at this point. And then there's our graph. Okay. All right. So let's move on to number 2. Assume the economy is in long run equilibrium. Assume the consumers wish to hold less money because they use credit cards more frequently, purchase goods and services than cash. Okay. Um, so um, says draw a correctly labeled graph of the money market and show the effect of the reducing holdings of money on the equilibrium nominal interest rate. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Look like this. This is our money market. We've got just a quantity of money over here. We got some sort of nominal interest rate. That's money supply. This is money demand. Okay, money supply is controlled by the Fed. Money demand is how much money folks want to hold. People want to hold less money, so that is decreasing the money demand, which in turn decreases the nominal interest rate. Okay. It says, based on the change in the interest rate, what will happen to each of the following in the short run? Prices of previously issued bonds. Okay, so think about this real quick. Okay. Previously issued bonds would have been more tied to this interest rate right here, the higher interest rate. So it'll have a higher interest rate. So newer bonds will have a lower interest rate. Okay. Well, people will want the bonds with the higher interest rate because they're going to get paid back more on that principal, okay, than they would with the lower interest rate. So that's going to increase the demand for bonds. And if we increase the demand for bonds, it's just a simple market. The price of bonds will increase. Okay, that's what that'll do. All right. The price level and the real income. Notice with B1, you didn't have to explain, but with the price and real income, we have to explain this. So this is another one where we're going to have to look at our ASAD. AS, short run aggregate supply. And again, if the nominal interest rate falls, it'll increase AD because interest sensitive spending will increase. And as that happens, the price level rises and output goes up. Okay. So you would say the price level would rise and the real income would raise because the drop in the interest rate will cause a increase in purchases of interest sensitive purchases, um, which will cause the AD to increase. All right, so C, this is a strange thing. With the constant money supply, based on your answers in part B2, will the velocity of money increase, decrease, or remain the same, or is indeterminate? So what this is talking about is you have this money formula, money supply times the velocity equals price level times the output. And so what this is saying is if the price level goes up, the output goes up, money supply goes, oh, excuse me, not money supply. Money supply stays the same. Well, that implies that this velocity of money also has to increase. So that's how we know it will increase. Okay. So velocity of money will have to increase. If the central bank wishes to reverse the change in interest rate identified in part A, what open market operation will it use? Okay. So we have the interest rate has lowered, so we want it to go higher. So they will actually decrease the money supply like that. Okay. And if they want to decrease money supply, what they need to do as an open market operation is they need to sell bonds, sell treasury bonds. Okay. All right, let's check our answers real quick. Okay, there's our reduction in the interest rate. Looking at number 2, at letter B, 1 point is earned for saying that the price of previous issues bonds will increase. Didn't have to explain it, but we went through a quick explanation there. 1 point is earned for saying that the price level and real income will increase. Okay, again, there's that increase in interest sensitive spending, which increases aggregate demand. 1 point is earned for saying that the velocity of money will increase. I showed you guys, didn't ask for an explanation there, but I showed you guys mathematically how that works. And 1 point is earned for saying that the central bank would sell bonds, okay, because they want to decrease the money supply. And to decrease the money supply, the open market operation they use is selling bonds. Okay, oops. Let's go on to number 3. Okay. Countries at full employment produces 2 types of goods, consumer goods and capital goods. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the production possibilities curve with consumer goods on the horizontal axis and capital goods on the vertical axis. Indicate the point on the graph labeled X that will represent full employment and, a possible combination in which both goods are being produced. Okay. So, which one did I say? Vertical axis is capital goods. All right. I messed that up last time, I think. Capital versus consumer. Not a bad model of the economy, honestly. We're going to have this because, again, it didn't say anything about opportunity costs. So let's assume increasing opportunity costs. Also, we're not doing any trade stuff here. They didn't really give us any numbers, so it's better just to use this. And then we're going to choose X somewhere in between. It has to be on the curve to show that this is full employment. And then it can't be up here. It can't be only with capital or only with consumer because it said that we want a combination of both. But anywhere else on that curve would work. All right, see, assume there's an increase in the national savings. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the loanable funds market showing the change in real interest rate from this increase in savings. Loanable funds market, amount of loanable funds versus the real interest rate. Demand, which is investors. S, which is savers. Increase in national saving means there's an increase in supply. If there's an increase in supply, we're showing that there is a drop in the real interest rate. Okay. So the real interest rate fell. On the same graph in A, show another point labeled Z that represents full employment in a new combination um, of consumer goods and new combination of consumer goods and capital goods, and consistent with the increase in the country's national savings. Okay. So what's happening here? hmm, So if savings increases, I think this is what will happen. Okay, in the short run, that means we're going to produce more capital goods because that's the more interest sensitive spending there. Okay, so we're going to move up to there, closer towards capital goods. Okay, producing more capital goods. It's lower rent um, on savings. So we're gonna produce more capital goods. Okay, I think that's what will happen. And then finally, referring to your answer in part C, will the long run aggregate supply curve shift to the right, left, shift to the left, or remain the same? Explain. It's going to shift to the right because it will increase. Um, Lower interest rate means that, as this shows, more capital formation. If there's more capital formation, it'll increase the productivity of the country in the long run, and in the long run, aggregate supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, let's check some of this scoring real quick. Yep, XZ. Again, like I said, started with X, and we just need to move closer to capital goods because it'll be cheaper. Um, because excuse me, there's more. We're going to spend more on capital with the lower interest rate. Here's the increase in the supply of loanable funds, which decreases the interest rate. Okay. Z is to the left of X on the curve, and 1 point is earned for saying the long run aggregate supply curve will shift to the right for explaining that capital accumulation will increase. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.